The first time I realized my wife was lying to me, she was standing 5 feet away making pancakes. Not crying, not nervous, not even trying hard, just lying like it was normal. Jessica called, she said casually. She wants me to help with her event Friday night. But Jessica had died 8 months earlier. I stood there holding my coffee mug like an idiot while my wife flipped pancakes in our kitchen outside Denver like nothing happened. That moment changed my entire life. I didn't confront her. That's the part people never understand. When someone lies badly, your brain searches for innocent explanations first. Maybe she forgot. Maybe she misspoke. Maybe I heard wrong. But deep down, I knew. After 12 years together, I knew exactly what my wife sounded like when she lied. And Emily was lying a lot lately. Her phone suddenly stayed face down. She started showering the second she got home. She laughed at texts and hid the screen. New lingerie appeared in drawers I never opened. Perfume. Expensive perfume. Not for grocery shopping. Then came the money. $3,000 disappeared from our savings account. I asked her about it while we watched Netflix. She barely looked up. Oh, I moved it to my personal account for Hannah's surprise birthday trip. Hannah was her cousin. Except Hannah's birthday was in November. It was March. That night, I couldn't sleep. Emily slept beside me peacefully while my mind tore itself apart. At 2:13 a.m., her phone buzzed. One text. She grabbed it instantly. Too instantly. She thought I was asleep. The room was dark, but I saw her face light up from the screen. Then she smiled. Not a normal smile. That smile. The dangerous one. The kind you give someone you crave. She quietly slid out of bed and walked downstairs. I waited 10 seconds before following her. Barefoot. Silent. Heart pounding so hard I thought she'd hear it. She stood in the kitchen whispering into her phone. I know, she said softly. I miss you too. My stomach dropped. Then she laughed quietly. You're bad. Silence. Then the sentence that shattered me. I wish he'd leave this weekend too. I stopped breathing. He. Not my name. Not Mark. Just he. Like I was some obstacle. Some inconvenience. I backed away before she saw me and climbed into bed pretending to sleep. 5 minutes later she returned. She wrapped an arm around me and whispered, Love you. I almost threw up. The next morning I called in sick to work. Not because I was sad. Because I needed answers. Emily left around 9 a.m. wearing black leggings and a cream sweater I bought her for Christmas. She kissed me goodbye, then drove away. I waited exactly 3 minutes before grabbing my keys. I followed her. People think tracking your spouse feels dramatic and cinematic. It doesn't. It feels pathetic, humiliating. You sit at red lights wondering how your life became this. Wondering if you're crazy. Wondering if maybe you deserve it. Emily drove across town. Not to her office. Not to a coffee shop. Not to Jessica's imaginary event planning meeting. She parked outside a small townhouse complex in Aurora and smiled. I watched a man open the front door before she even knocked. Like he was waiting. Tall guy. Early 40s. Beard. Athletic build. He kissed her immediately. Not hesitant. Not guilty. Comfortable. Experienced. My wife wrapped her arms around his neck like she belonged there. Then they disappeared inside. I sat frozen in my truck. My chest physically hurt. I wanted to storm inside. I wanted to scream. Instead, I just stared at the steering wheel for 20 minutes, trying not to completely lose my mind. Then something even worse happened. A little girl ran past the living room window, maybe 6 years old. Blonde hair, pink socks. And Emily followed her carrying juice boxes, like she'd done it 100 times before. I remember whispering out loud, "What the hell is this?" Because suddenly it didn't look like an affair. It looked like another life. I drove home numb. Every memory started replaying differently. Girls' weekends, late meetings, business conferences, the sudden gym obsession, the locked phone, the missing money. How long had this been happening? Weeks? Months? Years? I opened our laptop hoping to find something. Anything. Emily usually stayed logged into everything. Email, Facebook, Amazon. But not anymore. Every password changed. That terrified me more than the cheating. Because changing passwords means planning, preparation, intent. I checked our bank account again. More missing money. Small amounts this time. 500, 800, 1200. Over and over. Nearly $20,000 gone in 7 months. I felt dizzy. Then I noticed something else. A payment. Monthly. To a property management company. I clicked it. And there it was. A lease. Signed 6 months ago. For the townhouse in Aurora. My wife had secretly rented another home. My hands literally started shaking. Not just cheating, not just lying. A hidden house, a hidden man, and somehow a hidden child. That night, Emily came home smiling. She carried takeout from my favorite barbecue place, like she was a loving wife trying to surprise her husband. I watched her unpack food while pretending everything was normal. Then she looked at me carefully. Too carefully. "You okay?" she asked. I forced a smile. "Yeah. Why?" She stared for half a second too long, then nodded slowly. "I don't know. You've just seemed distant lately." Distant. That word almost made me laugh. Instead, I said, "Work stress." She walked over and kissed me. Warm lips. Familiar perfume. Another man's touch probably still on her skin. And suddenly I realized something terrifying. I had absolutely no idea who my wife really was anymore. I didn't sleep that night. Emily did. That's what destroyed me. She slept peacefully while I stared at the ceiling, replaying every second from that townhouse. The kiss. The little girl. The lease. The double life. Around 4 a.m., I quietly grabbed her phone from the nightstand. Locked. Of course. I tried our anniversary. Didn't work. Her birthday. Nope. Then I entered the only date I could still think about. Our wedding day. Unlocked. My chest tightened instantly. Part of me still wanted to be wrong. I opened her messages first. Nothing suspicious. Too clean. Way too clean. No flirty texts. No secret names. No deleted gaps. Professional level clean. That scared me more than finding cheating, because it meant she'd gotten careful. Then I checked hidden apps. Nothing. Until I opened her notes app. One locked note. Password protected. I stared at it for 10 seconds. Then typed our son's birthday. Opened. My blood turned cold. Inside was a list. Dates. Payments. Schedules. Almost like instructions. Mark golf weekend. Transfer $1,200 Thursday. Olivia dance recital 6 p.m. Take clothes before he gets home. Delete chase notifications. Olivia. The little girl. I kept scrolling. Then I saw the line that broke me. Need to tell him after summer. Tell me what? I suddenly heard movement upstairs. I locked the phone and slid back into bed just as Emily walked into the room. She smiled sleepily. "You're awake." Couldn't sleep. She climbed beside me and rested her head on my chest. That used to calm me. Now it made my skin crawl. "You ever think about moving?" she asked quietly. I froze. Moving where? I don't know. Somewhere different. Fresh start maybe. Fresh start. Translation, escape plan. I said nothing, but my mind was racing. Because people don't secretly rent houses and hide children unless they're preparing for something massive. The next morning I did something I never thought I'd do. I hired a private investigator. A guy named Rick. Former cop. Dry voice. Zero emotion. We met in a diner off Interstate 25. I slid him a picture of Emily. "I think my wife's having an affair." Rick barely looked surprised. "They usually are." That sentence hit harder than expected. I gave him the townhouse address, the man's description, the bank records. Rick reviewed everything quietly. Then he looked at me. "How much truth do you actually want?" I frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means sometimes cheating isn't the worst thing people discover." I wish I'd listened to that warning. 3 days later, Rick called me while I was at work. "You need to see this in person." My stomach dropped instantly. I drove to his office in silence. Rick handed me a folder without speaking. Inside were photographs. Emily entering the townhouse. Emily kissing the man. Emily shopping with the little girl. Family-looking photos. Painfully normal photos. But then I reached the last page, and my entire body went numb. A picture of Emily wearing a wedding ring, standing beside the man, at what looked like a school event. Like they were married. What the hell is this? Rick leaned back in his chair. The guy's name is Daniel Mercer. 43. Owns a construction company. I kept staring at the photo. "There's more," Rick said carefully. I looked up. The little girl's name is Olivia Mercer. Mercer. Not random child. His child. Rick slid another paper across the desk. Birth certificate. Mother, Emily Carter. I stopped breathing. No. No way. No fucking way. Olivia wasn't just his daughter. She was Emily's daughter too. I looked at the birth date. 6 years old. 6 years. Our son Ethan was 7. That meant while I was raising our family, Emily had another child. Another entire family. Hidden. Secret. Alive this whole time. I physically couldn't process it. "How is this possible?" Rick answered quietly. "Looks like she gave birth out of state. Nevada. Vegas. Suddenly memories slammed into me. Emily disappearing for months because of complications with her mother, the mysterious surgery story, the depression afterward. Oh my God, she'd been pregnant, and I never knew. I felt sick, actually sick. I rushed into Rick's bathroom and threw up. Not from the affair, from humiliation, because my entire marriage suddenly felt fake. Every anniversary, every Christmas, every I love you, all poisoned. When I came back out, Rick looked uncomfortable for the first time. There's one more thing. I almost laughed. Of course there was. He handed me financial records. Joint accounts. Not with me. With Daniel. My wife had been building a financial life with another man for years. Savings accounts. Shared bills. Insurance. Even worse. She'd listed herself there as Emily Mercer. Not Carter. Not my wife. His. I stared at the papers in disbelief. How long? Rick exhaled slowly. Looks like around 8 years. 8. I couldn't even think straight anymore. That meant almost our entire marriage. She met him barely a year after our wedding. Maybe earlier. Maybe the whole thing had always been a lie. Then Rick said the sentence that truly destroyed me. Based on timelines, you might want a DNA test for your son. The room went silent. I felt my heartbeat in my throat. No. Rick didn't speak. No. I repeated louder. Because some thoughts are too evil to say out loud. Ethan was my son. He had my eyes, my smile, my love for baseball. But suddenly doubt entered my head like poison. And once doubt enters, it spreads. I drove home in complete silence. The house looked normal when I pulled into the driveway. Basketball hoop, blue shutters, Ethan's bike on the lawn. A normal American family home. Except it was all built on lies. I walked inside and heard Emily laughing in the kitchen with Ethan. That laugh used to be my favorite sound. Now it sounded fake. Ethan ran toward me. Dad, Mom said we might go to California this summer. I looked at Emily instantly. California? She smiled too quickly. Just an idea. Another plan. Another move. Another hidden agenda. That night during dinner, I studied her carefully. How had I missed this? How had I loved someone capable of this level of deception? Then Emily casually said something that froze my blood. By the way, Daniel called today. Fork stopped in my hand. She realized it instantly. Too late. Too late to take it back. The room went dead silent. Emily's face lost all color. Ethan looked confused. Who's Daniel? Emily stared at me in horror. And for the first time in years, my wife looked genuinely afraid. Nobody moved. Not me. Not Emily. Not even Ethan. The only sound in the kitchen was the hum of the refrigerator. Emily blinked fast. Too fast. Then she forced a nervous laugh. Daniel from work, she said quickly. I told you about him. Lie. Automatic. Instant. Smooth. But this time I was ready. I leaned back slowly in my chair. No, I said calmly. I don't think you did. Her face tightened. Just for a second. But I saw it. Fear. Ethan kept eating mashed potatoes, completely unaware that his parents' marriage was seconds from exploding. Emily grabbed her water glass. Her hand shook slightly. You okay? I asked. She stared at me carefully now, studying me, trying to figure out how much I knew. That's the thing about liars. Once they suspect danger, every conversation becomes a chess match. I'm fine, she said. I nodded slowly, then smiled. Good. That scared her more. I could tell. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't reacting emotionally. I was watching, calculating. And Emily suddenly understood something was different. The rest of dinner felt like torture. Every small conversation sounded fake. How was school? Pass the salt. Did you finish homework? Normal family words. But underneath them, a nuclear bomb waiting to explode. After Ethan went upstairs, Emily cornered me in the kitchen. What's going on with you? I shrugged. What do you mean? You've been weird all week. Funny hearing that from someone hiding an entire second family. I rinsed my plate calmly. Maybe I'm tired. No, she said quietly. Something's off. I looked directly at her. And for half a second, I almost told her everything. The investigator. The townhouse. Olivia. But something stopped me. Because I still didn't know the full truth. An instinct told me there was more. A lot more. So instead I kissed her forehead and said, You're imagining things. That disturbed her badly. I saw it instantly. Because manipulators rely on emotional reactions. Anger, sadness, panic, but calmness. Calmness terrifies them. That night, Emily barely slept. She kept checking her phone, kept staring at me. Around midnight, she quietly got out of bed again. This time I followed her all the way outside. She sat in her car parked in the driveway, whispering into the phone. I moved close enough to hear pieces. No, he knows something. I don't know how much. No, don't come here. Because I said so, Daniel. Silence. Then, she can't know yet. She. Not Olivia. Another woman? My pulse started pounding. What the hell was happening? Emily suddenly looked toward the house. I ducked behind my truck before she saw me. 30 seconds later, she ended the call and went back inside. I stayed outside in the cold, trying to process those words. She can't know yet. Who? The next morning, I made a decision. I was getting DNA tests. I hated myself for it. Absolutely hated myself. But doubt is poison. Once it enters your mind, it destroys everything. I bought 2 kits during lunch. The cashier smiled casually while ringing them up. Big family project? I nearly laughed. Yeah, something like that. That afternoon, I picked Ethan up from baseball practice. He climbed into my truck sweaty and smiling. Coach says I might make All-Stars this year. That's awesome, buddy. He grinned exactly like I did at his age. Same crooked smile. Same dimples. How could he not be mine? At a red light, he looked at me suddenly. You and Mom fighting? The question hit hard. No. Why? He shrugged. She cries in the bathroom sometimes. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. How long? I don't know. A while. A while. Jesus Christ. What had been happening inside my own house while I walked around blind? That evening, Emily announced she had another work dinner. Of course she did. I smiled. Have fun. She hesitated, again surprised by my calmness. Then she left around 7 p.m. wearing a black dress I'd never seen before. 10 minutes later, I followed her. Not to the townhouse this time. Downtown Denver. An expensive restaurant. Valet parking. Wine bar. Candlelight atmosphere. I parked across the street and watched. Then Daniel arrived, and my stomach twisted instantly. Because he wasn't alone. A woman stepped out beside him. Tall brunette. Maybe late 30s. Elegant. Rich-looking. Wedding ring. They entered the restaurant together. 2 minutes later, Emily walked in separately. Not like a mistress meeting a secret lover. Like someone arriving for a meeting. I frowned in confusion. 20 minutes later, I finally went inside. I stayed near the bar where they couldn't see me. And then I saw something impossible. The brunette woman hugged Emily warmly. Like friends. Not enemies. The 4 of them sat together smiling and talking. 4? No. There was another man too. Older guy. Silver hair. Expensive suit. The entire table looked tense underneath the fake smiles. Then Emily slid papers across the table. Documents. The older man became visibly angry. Daniel grabbed his arm, trying to calm him down. The brunette woman started crying. And suddenly, Emily walked away from the table, looking furious. I ducked behind a column before she spotted me. My heart hammered. This wasn't an affair anymore. This was something else entirely. Something bigger. Emily stormed outside. I followed carefully. She stood near the valet area, angrily texting someone. Then she typed one sentence so aggressively I could practically feel it from across the street. A second later, my own phone buzzed. Emily, we need to talk tonight. Cold spread through my chest. She knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. I drove home before her and tried to think. My mind raced through possibilities. Was Daniel married too? Was Emily blackmailing someone? Was the brunette his wife? What documents were those? Then another terrifying thought hit me. What if Emily wasn't the only liar? At 10:14 p.m., the front door opened. Emily walked in slowly. No makeup now. No fake smile. Just exhaustion. She found me sitting alone in the living room. We can't keep doing this, she said quietly. I looked up. Doing what? She crossed her arms tightly, like she was holding herself together. Then she whispered, there are things you don't understand. I almost laughed. No kidding. Her eyes filled with tears instantly. Real tears this time. Not manipulation. Not performance. Fear. Pure fear. Then she said the last thing I expected to hear. I never wanted you involved in any of this. Involved? Not hurt. Not betrayed. Involved. Every alarm in my head went off at once. What the hell does that mean? Emily looked toward the staircase to make sure Ethan wasn't listening. Then she sat down slowly across from me and whispered, Daniel isn't the real problem. I stared at Emily, waiting for her to continue. She looked terrified. Not guilty. Terrified. And somehow that scared me more than the cheating ever did. What do you mean Daniel isn't the problem? Emily rubbed her hands together nervously. I need you to just listen first. No, I snapped. You don't get to control this conversation anymore. She flinched. Good. For once, she should feel uncomfortable. I leaned forward. You lied to me for years. You had a child. You rented another house. So start talking right now before I lose my mind. Tears rolled down her face. But I wasn't falling for tears anymore. Then she whispered, Olivia is my daughter. Hearing it out loud still hurt like hell. I laughed bitterly. Wow, thanks for confirming. She's yours. Everything stopped. No sound. No movement. Nothing. What? Emily cried harder. Olivia is your daughter, Mark. I stood up so fast the coffee table nearly flipped over. No. No. Absolutely not. It's true. You expect me to believe that after everything? She's yours. Emily repeated desperately. Daniel isn't her father. My brain physically struggled to process the sentence. I remembered Olivia running through that townhouse. Her blonde hair. Her eyes. Jesus Christ. They did look familiar. I backed away from Emily like she was dangerous. How? Her voice shook violently. 7 years ago, we were separated. Separated. Technically true. For 3 months after Ethan was born, our marriage almost collapsed. We fought constantly. No sleep. Money stress. Depression. Emily stayed with her mother in Nevada for a while. I remembered all of it. But then she said the sentence that detonated my reality. I found out I was pregnant after we got back together. I couldn't breathe properly anymore. And instead of telling me, I whispered, You hid my daughter for 6 years? Emily covered her face sobbing. You don't understand. No, you don't understand. I was yelling now. Years of lies exploding out of me. You let me live 6 years without knowing I had a daughter. I was trying to protect her. From what? Emily looked up at me with absolute panic. From Daniel. Silence. Then she said something even worse. He thinks Olivia is his. I felt cold all over. What? He signed the birth certificate. My mind spun violently. So you cheated on both of us? No. Then explain it. Emily took several shaky breaths. Daniel and I dated briefly while we were separated. But I also slept with you when we started reconnecting. I remembered. One weekend in Vegas. One emotional night where we almost fixed our marriage. My stomach twisted. Oh my God. Emily nodded through tears. When I got pregnant, the dates were too close. I wasn't sure who the father was. I stared at her in disbelief. So you just picked him? No, she whispered. I tested her. That sentence hit like a truck. You what? Secret DNA test after she was born. I couldn't even form words anymore. And when I found out she was yours, Emily continued, everything got worse. How? Because Daniel was already obsessed with her. The room suddenly felt smaller. What kind of obsessed? Emily hesitated too long. And that hesitation terrified me. Emily. Her lips trembled. He gets controlling. Controlling. That word felt way too soft. What did he do? She looked away. He said if I ever left, he'd take Olivia and disappear. A chill ran through my spine. I remembered the restaurant. The angry older man. The crying brunette. What the hell is going on? Emily wiped her face. Daniel comes from money. Of course he did. His father owns multiple construction companies. Investments. Properties. Everything. The older man. Silver hair. Expensive suit. His father. Emily continued quietly. They're extremely connected. Lawyers. Judges. Politicians. Now things started making horrifying sense. The townhouse. Daniel bought it. The money you stole. Her face collapsed. I was trying to save enough to leave. I laughed angrily. You could have left with me. I couldn't risk it. Risk what? Then Emily finally broke. Completely. The kind of crying where people can barely breathe. Because Daniel threatened Ethan. Every nerve in my body lit up instantly. What did you just say? Emily looked shattered. He found out Olivia was probably yours 2 years ago. My heart stopped. What? He hacked my email. Found old medical records. I felt dizzy. And then, he said if I ever told you the truth, her voice cracked violently. He'd destroy our family. I grabbed the edge of the couch, trying to stay grounded. What does that mean? Emily stared directly into my eyes. It means Daniel isn't just some jealous boyfriend. She swallowed hard. He's dangerous. I wanted to reject everything she was saying. But suddenly dozens of strange memories came flooding back. The random black SUV parked near our house. The unknown calls Emily ignored. Her panic whenever Ethan posted online. The crying in bathrooms. Oh my God. Had she been terrified this whole time? Then another realization hit me. The woman at dinner tonight. Emily closed her eyes instantly. That was his wife. I blinked. His what? He got married 3 years ago. I almost laughed from insanity. So he has two families. Basically, what about the older guy? His father. And the documents. Emily looked sick again. Custody papers. The room spun. Custody of who? Emily whispered. Olivia. I sat down slowly because my legs suddenly felt weak. You're telling me this man has been raising my daughter for 6 years, and now he wants full custody? Emily nodded. Why now? Then she said the most horrifying thing yet. Because his wife can't have children. Everything clicked at once. The fake family photos. The school events. The perfect public image. Olivia wasn't just a child to him. She was an asset. A replacement. A possession. I felt rage building so intensely I could barely think. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Emily looked broken. Because I thought I could handle it. And now? She stared at me helplessly. Now he knows I'm trying to leave. Silence filled the room. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. One text. Just one sentence. Stop digging unless you want your son hurt too. Emily saw my face instantly. And whispered. That's him. I read the text 3 times. Maybe more. My hands were shaking so hard, I almost dropped the phone. Emily looked pale. When did he get your number? I don't know, she whispered. But we both knew the truth. Daniel had probably known everything about me for years. Where I worked. Where Ethan went to school. What route I drove home. The realization made me physically sick. I stood up instantly. We're calling the police. Emily grabbed my arm fast. No. I yanked away. He threatened our son. You don't understand how this works. I stared at her in disbelief. No, you don't understand. I'm done hiding. Emily's face hardened suddenly. Not manipulative. Desperate. Mark, listen to me carefully. Daniel's family donated millions to city officials. His cousin is literally a district attorney. Every time I tried getting help, somehow he found out. Cold spread through my chest. You went to police before? Emily nodded slowly. Twice. And both times Daniel contacted me before detectives even called back. Jesus Christ. I ran my hands through my hair, trying to think. This entire thing felt unreal now. Not just betrayal. Not just cheating. Control. Fear. Power. Then upstairs, a floorboard creaked. Ethan. I looked toward the staircase instantly. Everything changed in that moment. Before, this was about my marriage. Now, this was about protecting my kids. Both of them. I looked back at Emily. Does Olivia know? Emily's eyes filled again. No. She thinks Daniel is her father? A quiet nod. I sat down heavily. Somewhere out there, my 6-year-old daughter existed without even knowing me. And another man tucked her into bed every night. Another man heard her laugh. Saw her first dance recital. Held her hand when she was scared. 6 years stolen from me. I suddenly felt overwhelming grief underneath the anger. Emily noticed. I wanted to tell you so many times. I laughed bitterly. But you didn't. No. The honesty hurt more somehow. Then another thought hit me. The DNA test. Emily froze. I stared directly at her. Ethan. She immediately shook her head. Mark, no. You hesitated. Because I knew you'd think that. I stepped closer. Is he mine? Emily started crying again. Yes. Too fast. Too emotional. I couldn't trust anything anymore. I want a test. That broke her. Actually broke her. She covered her mouth, trying not to sob loudly enough for Ethan to hear. You really think I'd lie about him too? I thought you'd never hide a daughter from me. Silence. She had no answer. At 1 a.m. we sat in dead silence on opposite sides of the kitchen. Two strangers wearing the faces of a married couple. Then Emily quietly said, There's something else. Of course there was. I almost laughed from exhaustion. What now? She stared at the table. Daniel thinks you know about the money. The stolen savings? No. That made my stomach tighten. What money? Emily looked ashamed. The company money. Every nerve in my body went alert. What company money? Her voice became barely audible. Your company. I felt genuine panic for the first time. What did you do? I didn't do it, she said quickly. Daniel did. I worked as regional operations manager for a medical supply company. Nothing glamorous. But I had access to accounts, budgets, vendor approvals. Emily swallowed hard. 2 years ago, Daniel started using your credentials. The room tilted sideways. What? He hacked your work accounts through our home network. I couldn't even process the sentence. That's impossible. It happened. How do you know? Because I found out. My chest tightened. And he said if I ever exposed him, he'd tell authorities you were involved. I stared at her in horror. How much money? Emily whispered. About 400,000. My vision blurred. No, 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 no. That kind of fraud could destroy my entire life. Prison. Career gone. Everything. I suddenly remembered random security verification texts. Password resets. IT emails. Holy shit. Daniel had been using me as cover. I stood up pacing violently now. Why didn't you tell me immediately? Because I was trying to fix it. How? I've been secretly moving money back. The missing savings. The transfers. My God. That's why she was taking money. Not to build another life. To repay stolen funds before anyone noticed. I leaned against the counter, breathing hard. Every emotion inside me collided together. Betrayal. Relief. Hatred. Confusion. Then another terrifying realization hit me. If Daniel thinks I know. Emily nodded slowly. He's panicking. And dangerous people panic badly. She looked at me with genuine fear. You need to take Ethan somewhere safe. What about Olivia? Emily looked shattered. He'll never let her go. That sentence lit something inside me. Wrong move. Very wrong move. Because suddenly this wasn't just fear anymore. It became personal. Daniel stole 6 years from me. Used my identity. Threatened my son. Controlled my wife through fear. And kept my daughter hidden. No, absolutely not. I grabbed my keys. Emily stood immediately. Where are you going? To end this. Mark, don't. Too late. I was already out the door. The drive to the townhouse felt like an out-of-body experience. Streetlights blurred. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. Part of me knew this was reckless. But rage was driving now. Not logic. I pulled into the complex around 1:40 a.m. Daniel's black Range Rover sat outside. Lights still on inside the townhouse. Good. I walked straight to the front door and pounded hard enough to shake it. 3 seconds later, Daniel opened it. Calm. Way too calm. Like he expected me. Tall. Athletic. Expensive watch. A man used to power. He looked at me almost sympathetically. Mark. I swung before he finished the sentence. My fist connected perfectly with his jaw. Daniel stumbled backward into the hallway. Years of rage exploded out of me. You threatening my son now. I lunged again, but 2 massive security guys appeared instantly from deeper inside the house. Security? What the hell? They grabbed me hard. Daniel wiped blood from his mouth calmly. Then smiled. Actually smiled. That's probably not the smartest thing you've ever done. I fought against the guards violently. Where's Olivia? Something changed in Daniel's expression immediately. Coldness. Pure coldness. She's asleep. My daughter. No, he said quietly. Mine. The rage I felt in that moment scared even me. You stole her. Daniel stepped closer slowly. No, Mark. Emily gave her to me. I froze. He saw it instantly. Then he delivered the sentence designed to destroy me. She chose me. I stopped fighting the guards. Not because I calmed down. Because Daniel's words hit harder than the punch I threw. She chose me. The sentence echoed inside my skull. Daniel adjusted his shirt calmly while the guards held my arms. You should leave, he said quietly. I stared at him with pure hatred. You think this ends with me walking away? He smiled slightly. No, I think this ends with you realizing you've already lost. I lunged again. The guard slammed me against the wall hard enough to knock the air out of me. And then, a small voice came from upstairs. Daddy, everything froze. Daniel looked up instantly. One of the guards released me. Tiny footsteps moved across the second floor. Then Olivia appeared at the top of the staircase wearing pink pajamas and rubbing her eyes. My daughter. Jesus Christ. Seeing her up close almost destroyed me. Blonde hair. My eyes. My smile. I saw myself immediately. Daniel's face changed completely the second he looked at her. Warm. Protective. Like a real father. That messed with my head worse than anything else. Olivia looked confused. Who was that? Daniel answered instantly. Just someone from work, sweetheart. Someone from work. I felt physically sick. Olivia looked directly at me and smiled politely, exactly the way kids smile at strangers. She had no idea who I was. Not even a clue. 6 years. Gone. Then she looked at Daniel again. Are you okay? Because she saw the blood on his lip. Daniel smiled softly. I'm fine, Bug. Go back upstairs. Bug. A nickname. Thousands of bedtime stories hidden inside one tiny word. Olivia nodded sleepily and disappeared upstairs again. The second she vanished, I completely broke inside. Not externally, internally, because I realized something unbearable. Daniel wasn't pretending with her. He genuinely loved her. And somehow that made me hate him even more. The guards finally let me go. Daniel sighed tiredly. You done? I stared at him. She's mine. No, he replied calmly. Biology isn't fatherhood. That sentence landed like a knife. Because part of me feared he was right. He was there for first words, first steps, first nightmares, first birthdays. Not me. I missed everything. Daniel stepped closer, lowering his voice. You know what the funny part is? I said nothing. She talks about wanting a dad like me when she grows up. I swung again. This time he dodged it easily. The guards grabbed me immediately. Daniel shook his head almost sadly. You're emotional. That's your problem. And you're a psychopath. He smirked slightly. No, I'm practical. Then his expression darkened. But let's stop pretending this is about morality. He walked toward the kitchen and motioned for the guards to release me. Surprisingly, they did. Daniel poured himself whiskey calmly. You think Emily's some innocent hostage? I stayed silent. Ask her why she stayed after finding out Olivia was yours. I frowned. What? Daniel took a sip slowly. She had options. She stayed anyway. My stomach tightened. No. Oh yeah. He laughed quietly. You really think fear kept her around for 6 years? The certainty in his voice shook me. Then he delivered another hit. She loved me too. I wanted to reject it instantly. But deep down, part of me already knew. Because people don't build secret families with someone they completely hate. Daniel sat across from me. You know what Emily told me once? I didn't answer. She said you made her feel safe. But I made her feel alive. That one hurt. Badly. He saw it in my face too. Then he leaned forward. She loved the stability you gave her. The house. The routine. The safety. Every word felt calculated. But me, he continued softly. I was the secret she couldn't quit. I grabbed the edge of the counter, trying not to lose control again. Daniel studied me quietly. You really want the truth? No, I snapped. I want my daughter. He ignored that. Emily tried leaving me 4 times. My eyes narrowed. And every single time, she came back on her own. I hated that part because it sounded believable. Not because Emily was evil. Because humans are messy, weak, complicated. Daniel continued. She likes intensity, chaos, passion. He gestured toward me dismissively. You're predictable. The insult barely mattered anymore. Nothing mattered except one thing. What do you actually want from us? For the first time all night, Daniel looked genuinely exhausted. I want this situation contained. Contained. Like we were some legal inconvenience. You forged accounts using my identity. You can't prove that. You threatened my son. You can't prove that either. My blood boiled again. Daniel stood slowly. Here's reality, Mark. His voice turned ice cold. If this explodes publicly, Emily loses Olivia permanently. I froze. She knows that. Suddenly, I understood something terrifying. That was the real leash. Not money. Not fear. Olivia. Daniel saw realization hit me. That little girl loves me, he said quietly. And courts care about stability. I hated how smart that was. 6 years with one father figure. A wealthy household. Private school. Resources. Meanwhile, I'd appear suddenly like some angry stranger trying to rip her away. Daniel walked toward the stairs. And honestly, he added without turning around, you'd probably lose. I stood there shaking with rage. Because the worst part? He might have been right. Then he stopped halfway up the staircase. One more thing. I stared at him. He looked directly into my eyes. If Ethan isn't yours, would you even want to know? My heart stopped. He smiled faintly, then disappeared upstairs. I drove home completely shattered. The streets looked unreal. Everything felt unreal. When I walked into the house around 3 a.m., Emily was waiting in the kitchen crying. She stood instantly. What happened? I looked at her for a long time, then asked the question that mattered most. Did you love him? Emily froze completely. Silence stretched forever. And in that silence, I got my answer. She covered her face slowly. Oh my God. Not denial. Not anger. Regret. That hurt worse. I laughed quietly like a broken man. You loved him. Emily cried harder. I loved you too. Too. That word destroyed the last piece of my heart she still had left. I didn't scream at Emily. Didn't throw things. Didn't even cry. I just sat there staring at the kitchen floor while my marriage finally died in front of me. I loved you too. Too. Like love was something divisible, transferable, shared between households. I laughed quietly to myself. 12 years together reduced to one horrifying word. Emily sat across from me sobbing. I never meant for this to happen. That's the problem, I said numbly. Everything just happened with you. The affair happened. The lies happened. The second family happened. Nothing was ever a decision in her mind. Just emotional gravity pulling her toward chaos. The sun started rising outside. Orange light filled the kitchen. A new day beginning while my entire life collapsed. Then Ethan walked downstairs. And everything changed again. Because kids know. Maybe not details. But energy. Tension. Pain. He stopped halfway down the stairs looking between us. Why is Mom crying? Emily instantly wiped her face. I'm okay, baby. Lie. Automatic again. Ethan looked at me, and I realized something terrifying. I didn't know if he was my son. The guilt hit immediately after the thought. Because no matter what DNA said, I raised him, taught him baseball, helped with homework, held him when he had nightmares. That's real, isn't it? God, I hope so. I forced a smile. Hey, buddy, why don't you get ready for school? He hesitated, then quietly asked, Are you guys getting divorced? The room went silent. Emily broke down crying again, and I suddenly hated Daniel more than ever. Because whatever happened next, our son would pay for it too. That afternoon, I finally did the DNA tests. One for Ethan, one for Olivia. The nurse at the private clinic smiled politely while handing me paperwork. Results usually take 3 to 5 days. 3 to 5 days. Amazing how a human life can balance on an email. Afterward, I sat alone in my truck for nearly an hour. No music, no phone, just silence. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number again. I expected Daniel. Instead, it was a photo. Olivia at a playground. Laughing. Underneath it, one message. She deserves stability. Don't ruin her life because your feelings are hurt. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. This psychopath really thought he was protecting her. That's what scared me most. He didn't see himself as evil. He saw himself as necessary. Then another message arrived. You should ask Emily what happened in Scottsdale. Scottsdale? I frowned immediately. Arizona. Emily had gone there 2 years ago for a marketing conference. Why bring that up? I called her instantly. She answered on the second ring. Mark, what happened in Scottsdale? Silence. A long silence. Then, did Daniel contact you? What happened? Her breathing changed immediately. Panic. Mark, listen to me carefully. If he's bringing that up, he's trying to manipulate you. What happened in Scottsdale? Another silence. Then finally, I tried to leave him. I frowned. And he overdosed. Cold spread through me. What? Emily's voice cracked. I told him I was done. He took pills and ended up hospitalized. Jesus Christ. And after that, he blamed me. Of course he did. I closed my eyes exhausted. So you stayed because you felt guilty. Yes. Trauma bond. Fear. Manipulation. Everything suddenly looked uglier. Then Emily whispered something else. There's something I never told anyone. I almost laughed. Another secret. Perfect. What now? Her voice shook violently. I think Daniel watches us. Every instinct in my body sharpened instantly. What do you mean? I found cameras once. I sat upright immediately. Where? In our garage. My blood ran cold. I thought I was paranoid, she whispered. But then I found another one in my car months later. Holy shit. How long? I don't know. Suddenly dozens of moments replayed differently. Daniel knowing things too quickly. Random comments Emily couldn't explain. The threats. This wasn't obsession anymore. This was surveillance. Control. I drove home immediately and checked everything. Garage. Smoke detectors. Office. Nothing obvious. Then I checked Ethan's Xbox shelf. And found it. Tiny black camera hidden behind trophies. I physically stopped breathing. Daniel had been inside my house. Maybe multiple times. I called Emily. You were right. She started crying instantly. Oh my God. I ripped the camera out violently. And underneath it, a tiny blinking green light. Active. Someone was watching recently. I suddenly felt exposed in my own home. Every conversation, every argument, every private moment. Observed. That night, I barely slept. At 2:47 a.m., my phone buzzed again. This time it was a voice message. Daniel, calm as always. You need to stop escalating things. I listened silently. You're emotional right now. I understand. But think logically. I nearly threw the phone across the room. Then his voice became colder. If authorities start digging into financial crimes, your company won't survive the scandal. Neither will your marriage. Neither will your custody situation. Pause. Then, and Ethan deserves better than visiting his father in prison. I wanted to kill him. Actually kill him. Then the final line came. Get the DNA results first. After that, decide whether you really want the truth. The message ended. I sat there breathing hard in the darkness. Because Daniel knew exactly where to stab. Doubt. That tiny seed growing inside me every hour. Then suddenly I heard movement downstairs. I grabbed the baseball bat beside my bed instantly. Every nerve lit up. Another sound. Kitchen. I moved silently through the hallway gripping the bat, so tightly my hands hurt. The house was dark. Quiet. Then I reached the stairs and saw a figure standing in my kitchen. A man. Tall. Motionless. Watching me. For one terrifying second, I thought it was Daniel. Then the figure stepped into the moonlight, and my entire body went cold. Because it wasn't Daniel. It was the older man from the restaurant, Daniel's father, and he was standing alone inside my house. I tightened my grip on the baseball bat. Daniel's father stood calmly in my kitchen like he belonged there. No panic, no rush, no fear. The man looked exhausted. Older up close. Expensive coat, gray hair, heavy eyes. He slowly raised both hands. I'm not here to hurt you. I didn't lower the bat. How did you get into my house? Your garage code hasn't changed in years. Cold spread through me instantly. These people knew everything. He looked around the kitchen quietly, then sighed. My son has made a catastrophic mess. I almost laughed. That's one way to describe it. He nodded slightly. You're angry. You should be. Get to the point. The man looked directly at me. My name is Richard Mercer. I know who you are. And I know exactly who you are, Mark. That sentence carried weight. Not threatening. Just sad. Richard slowly sat at the kitchen table without asking permission. Then he said something unexpected. I came because Emily won't. I frowned. What does that mean? He folded his hands together carefully. She still protects Daniel. Of course she did. Trauma doesn't disappear overnight. Richard stared at the countertop for several seconds before speaking again. My son has been unstable for years. Unstable. Interesting word. He wasn't always like this, Richard continued quietly. But after his mother died, something changed. I stayed silent. Control became an obsession, especially with family. Suddenly Olivia made horrifying sense. Not just love. Possession. Richard looked up at me. You need to understand something important. What? If Daniel thinks he's losing Olivia, he becomes unpredictable. The understatement nearly made me sick. He threatened my son. Richard closed his eyes briefly. Yes. You knew? I suspected. Rage surged instantly. You people covered this up for years. Richard nodded slowly. That's true. No excuses. No denial. Just truth. Oddly enough, that honesty hit harder than manipulation. Then he reached into his coat pocket and slid a folder across the table. I'm trying to fix what I can. I opened it cautiously. Inside were printed bank records, emails, transfer logs, proof, real proof. My hands shook while flipping pages. Every stolen transaction linked directly back to Daniel. Not me. I looked up sharply. Richard nodded once. Enough evidence to clear your name. I stared at him suspiciously. Why would you help me? For the first time all night, the old man looked genuinely broken. Because Olivia deserves at least one adult willing to stop this. Silence filled the kitchen. Then Richard delivered the final twist I never saw coming. She already knows. I frowned immediately. Knows what? That Daniel might not be her biological father. Every nerve in my body went cold. How? Richard looked ashamed. She overheard an argument. Jesus Christ. How long ago? 3 months. 3 months. That little girl had been carrying this confusion alone. I sat down slowly, and Richard swallowed hard. She asked about you. My chest tightened painfully. What did Daniel tell her? That you were dangerous. The rage that hit me in that moment was indescribable. Richard quickly added, but she didn't believe him. That stopped me. I stared at the old man silently. He reached into the folder again, then handed me a folded drawing. Crayon drawing. A child's drawing. I unfolded it carefully. 3 stick figures holding hands. 1 woman. 1 little girl. 1 tall man with brown hair. Me. At the top, in crooked handwriting. My real dad. I couldn't breathe. She saw your photo once, Richard said quietly. In Emily's phone. My vision blurred instantly. This tiny little girl I'd never met. Already wondered about me. I pressed the drawing against the table, trying not to completely fall apart. Richard stood slowly. She wants to meet you. I looked up sharply. What? She's terrified. Confused. But she wants answers. Daniel would never allow that. No, Richard agreed. He won't. Then his expression darkened. Which is why you need to move fast. A chill crawled down my spine. What does that mean? Richard hesitated. Then finally, Daniel is planning to leave the country. Everything inside me froze. What? He has property in Costa Rica. No extradition complications. New accounts already prepared. Panic exploded through my chest. When? Soon. How soon? Richard looked me dead in the eyes. Tomorrow. I grabbed my phone, instantly calling Emily. No answer. Again. Nothing. My heart started pounding violently. I called again. Straight to voicemail. Richard looked grim. She went to get Olivia tonight. Oh my God. She said she was done running. I bolted toward the door immediately. Then my phone buzzed. One incoming email. DNA results available. My body stopped moving. Ethan. Olivia. Every answer sitting inside one email. I stared at the screen, unable to breathe. Open it now, or go save my daughter. My hands trembled violently. Then another text appeared. From Emily. Just 6 words. He took Olivia. I'm following them. I ran outside instantly. Rain slammed against the driveway. Thunder cracked overhead. Richard followed behind me yelling something, but I barely heard him. I jumped into my truck and started driving. Fast. Too fast. My phone sat glowing in the cup holder beside me. DNA results unopened. Because suddenly I realized something important. It didn't matter anymore. Not really. Whether Ethan shared my blood or not. He was my son. And Olivia? That little girl drawing pictures of a father she never met? She was my daughter too. DNA didn't create those feelings. Love did. I sped through the rain toward the highway while my phone kept vibrating with incoming calls. Emily. Unknown numbers. Daniel. I ignored all of them. Then finally one voicemail notification appeared. Olivia. Tiny trembling voice. Hi. My chest tightened instantly. I don't know if you're my dad yet. A shaky breath. But I think maybe you are. I felt tears mixing with rain on my face. Then her tiny voice whispered the sentence I'll never forget for the rest of my life. Please come find me.